Well, if you were handed a pill right now that guaranteed you would never, ever die, would you take it?
I mean, I think most people wouldn't even hesitate.
Right. They would just swallow it immediately. Because, the fear of death is basically the single loudest alarm bell in the human nervous system.
Oh, absolutely. It's wired into us.
Yeah. But today's deep dive, which is based on a remarkably short 9-word source sent in by you, our listener, kind of reveals why taking that pill might actually be the worst mistake in the history of our species.
It's a huge trap.
It really is. And the prompt you sent us is simply this: the architecture of eternal life. What if humans became immortal?
It is so brilliant in its brevity, honestly, because it doesn't ask, like, how we become immortal as if it's some magic trick.
Right, like a potion or something.
Exactly. By using that specific word, architecture, it forces us to confront this really terrifying reality that living forever wouldn't just, happen to us. We would have to aggressively, meticulously engineer every single second of it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because right out of the gate, that word architecture completely changes the framing of the whole conversation.
It really does.
We usually think of immortality as like a biological switch we just need to flip. But architecture implies a foundation, right? Blueprints, a load-bearing structure.
Yes. Intention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like if you were building a tent in the woods, you just drive some cheap plastic stakes into the dirt because you only need it to survive a long weekend.
Right. You aren't worried about next year.
No. But if you were building a cathedral, you have to dig down into the bedrock. You have to calculate the physics of massive stone pillars and engineer flying buttresses so the walls don't just collapse outward under their own weight. I mean, the cathedral is built to defy time.
What's fascinating here is that when you look at it, the human body is absolutely a weekend tent.
We are so fragile.
We really are. We are an architecture of planned obsolescence. So if we want to actually live forever, we can't just stop aging. We have to completely tear down and rebuild the biological foundation of what a human being actually is.
Let's get into the mechanics of that, because I feel like pop culture always skips this part.
Oh, always.
People think scientists will just, I don't know, find a way to stop wrinkles and keep our joints from aching. But aging isn't just wear and tear, is it? It's baked into our cellular code.
Yeah, it is entirely structural. Basically, every time your cells divide to create new cells, which is the thing that keeps you alive, by the way, they have to copy your DNA.
Okay.
But the copying machinery, it can't quite reach the very end of the DNA strand. So to protect the vital genetic information, our chromosomes have these caps on the ends called telomeres.
Right. Okay, I have heard of telomeres, but how do they actually, dictate our expiration date?
Well, think of telomeres like the little plastic tips at the ends of your shoelaces.
Oh, the aglets.
Yes, the aglets. Every time your cell divides, a tiny piece of that plastic tip gets snipped off.
Ouch.
Right. And eventually, after a few decades of cell division, that plastic tip is completely gone.
And the shoelace phrase.
Exactly, the shoelace phrase. The DNA starts taking actual damage. Cells stop replicating properly, and that entire biological structure just begins to collapse. That is what aging is.
But wait a minute. If that is the only mechanism, wouldn't biology have already figured out a way to, replace the plastic tips? I mean, life has been evolving for billions of years. Why hasn't nature already built an immortal organism?
Well, it actually has, but in a very dark way.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Cancer cells are biologically immortal.
Are you serious? Cancer doesn't age.
No, it doesn't, because cancer cells activate an enzyme called telomerase, and telomerase constantly rebuilds that plastic tip on the shoelace.
Wow.
Yeah, so the cell can divide endlessly without ever fraying. So to architect eternal life, we would essentially have to engineer every healthy cell in the human body to produce telomerase perfectly forever.
Without, accidentally triggering the chaotic runaway replication that actually causes tumors.
Exactly.
So we basically have to ride the razor's edge of cancer for eternity.
Pretty much.
That is wild. And that is just the baseline, right? Just to keep the physical body breathing.
Just to keep the lights on.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. I want to push back on the idea that the body is the hardest part of this architecture.
Oh, okay. Let's hear it.
Let's assume we solve the telomere problem. We cure cellular aging entirely. What happens to the brain? Like if my brain evolved to handle, at maximum, a century of information, what happens in year 4000?
That is the big one. You essentially hit a biological hard drive limit.
Right.
Your brain has about, 86 billion neurons, and they form trillions of synaptic connections. That is an astonishing amount of storage, but it is finite. It is bound by the physical volume of your skull.
So it's literally like trying to use a smartphone without ever deleting a single photo or app or text message for 1,000 years.
Yes.
Eventually, the operating system is just going to freeze, like the storage is completely full.
Exactly. So what is the architectural solution to a full biological hard drive? Well, neuroplasticity dictates that to form new pathways for new memories, the brain would have to prune old ones.
Oh, wow.
So to learn a new language in year 3000, your brain might have to permanently overwrite the memory of your childhood, or even the faces of your original parents.
That brings up a deeply terrifying philosophical concept. If you live for 10,000 years, but your brain can only physically hold 100 years of data, you aren't really living forever.
No, you aren't.
You are just a biological machine, constantly wiping its own memory. The version of you from year 200 is functionally dead.
Yeah. It is the ultimate ship of Theseus paradox. If you replace every single memory, are you actually still the same person?
I don't think you are.
Right. We would have to invent an entirely new architectural framework for identity itself. Like maybe we engineer biological external hard drives.
Like plugging a USB into your neck.
Kind of, or maybe we have to perform like weekly data dumps into a cloud server just to maintain a continuous sense of self.
And if we don't, we just become these drifting, amnesiac immortals wandering the earth. Which actually brings us to the earth itself.
Let's talk about it.
If we somehow build this cathedral of a human body, a body that repairs its DNA flawlessly and offloads its memories perfectly, we now have an immortal human. But a human doesn't exist in a vacuum. We exist in a society.
And our current societal architecture is entirely predicated on people dying.
Yes, this is where the math gets brutal. If the death rate drops to absolute zero, but the birth rate remains anything above zero, the population graph just goes straight vertical.
It's exponential.
And I know the immediate sci-fi answer is always, well, we just colonize space. But I honestly hate that answer. It feels like such a cop-out.
It really is.
Like space is big, sure,
Yeah.
but launching millions of people into orbit every single day just to alleviate population density on Earth, that seems logistically impossible.
It is impossible, primarily because of the thermodynamics of escaping Earth's gravity.
Right, the fuel alone.
Exactly. The energy required to constantly export a compounding, immortal population off-world. It would deplete the planet's resources way faster than just keeping them here. You basically cannot outrun exponential math with rockets.
So space doesn't solve it at all. The architecture of an immortal society on Earth would require unimaginable authoritarian resource management. I mean, if nobody loses the party, you eventually run out of hors d'oeuvre.
That is a good way to put it. You would have to architect a completely closed-loop ecosystem. Every single drop of water, every joule of energy, every scrap of carbon would have to be perfectly recycled.
But the more insidious problem isn't even the physical resources, is it?
No, it's the economic and cultural resources. Think about wealth.
Oh man, compound interest.
Precisely. We have a system where wealth compounds over time. The only thing that breaks up massive consolidations of wealth in our current world is the estate tax, inheritance dilution, and, well, death.
Right.
If a billionaire lives for 500 years, their wealth compounds to the point where they literally own the entire planetary economy. So how do you design an economic architecture that doesn't inevitably result in one immortal trillionaire owning all the land, while 10 billion immortals rent from them forever?
You would basically have to abolish the concept of ownership altogether.
You might have to.
But it's not just wealth that stagnates in this scenario. It's human progress itself. There's a famous concept by the physicist Max Planck.
Oh, I know the one.
Yeah, he essentially said that science doesn't advance because people change their minds. Science advances because the old establishment dies and a new generation with fresh ideas takes over.
Right. Science advances one funeral at a time.
Exactly. If the CEO of a company or a Supreme Court justice or a tenured professor literally never dies, they never retire. The new guard never ever gets a chance to lead.
They're locked out forever.
An immortal society would be the most culturally and technologically stagnant civilization imaginable. The ideas of the 21st century would rule the 30th century just because the exact same people who came up with them are still in charge.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is why the source's question, what if humans became immortal, is not a utopic vision. When you remove the architecture of mortality, you remove the engine of change.
You really do?
Which pulls us straight into the psychological architecture of eternity.
I really want to dissect this part because
Yeah.
there is this prevailing trope that human beings need deadlines to accomplish anything.
Oh, sure.
It's the old joke that nothing in college gets written until the night before the paper is due. The argument goes that if we have infinite time, we will just procrastinate forever.
Yeah.
But I want to challenge that. Is that actually true?
What do you mean?
Well, I hate deadlines. I
Yeah.
feel like if I didn't have to worry about paying rent or, rushing to hit milestones before I got too old, I would finally have the peace of mind to spend 50 years mastering the piano or painting or studying physics.
It is a valid pushback. I mean, the desire to create isn't solely driven by a fear of death. However, we have to look at the neurology of motivation here. The human brain runs on a very specific neurochemical economy. Dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, these are all rewards for solving problems, overcoming scarcity, or taking risks.
Okay, I see where you're going.
If you remove the ultimate scarcity, which is time, does the brain still release the same reward for mastering the piano?
Because mastery implies an investment of something valuable.
Excellent.
And if time is infinite, time is no longer valuable.
Exactly. We value a rare diamond because it is scarce, right?
Yeah.
We do not place monetary value on the oxygen we breathe because it is ubiquitous.
Yeah.
So if your time becomes like oxygen limitless and omnipresent, the psychological weight of your achievements just evaporates. It's not necessarily that you would just sit on the couch and do nothing forever. It's that doing something and doing nothing would begin to feel neurochemically identical.
That is deeply unsettling. It just strips all the color out of the human experience.
It really does.
And think about how it would mutate our relationship with risk. We celebrate extreme athletes and deep-sea explorers and astronauts because they are putting their one finite life on the line to achieve something extraordinary.
Right.
If they fail, they lose maybe 40 years.
But if you are biologically immortal, the calculus of risk changes entirely.
Completely. If you have cured aging and disease, the only way you can die is through physical trauma, like a car crash, a fall, a violent accident.
Right.
If crossing a busy street could theoretically rob you of an infinite number of tomorrows, would you ever leave your house? The penalty for a minor miscalculation goes from losing a few decades to losing eternity.
You would see a society consumed by a pathological, paralyzing risk aversion. The architecture of an immortal city would likely be dominated by extreme safety measures. Soft edges everywhere, no manual transportation, total physical isolation.
So to protect the infinite life, you have to strip away everything that makes it vibrant. You would essentially have to build a global padded room, which actually leads me to an analogy that really crystallized this whole source text for me.
I'd love to hear it.
Think about a massive open-world video game. When you start playing, it is incredibly engaging because you are fragile. You are scavenging for resources, you are avoiding enemies, you are leveling up. Every decision matters because there are consequences.
There is friction between you and the goal.
Yes, friction. But imagine you turn on a cheat code. Suddenly you have infinite health. You have infinite money. You cannot be killed, and you can buy anything in the game instantly.
Sounds fun at first.
Right. For the first 10 minutes, it is an absolute blast. You run around causing chaos, blowing things up, feeling like a literal god.
Yeah.
But what happens at minute 45?
The mechanics of the game collapse.
Exactly. You get profoundly, existentially bored. You wander around this empty digital landscape where nothing can hurt you and nothing requires effort. So what do? You just put the controller down and walk away. The game isn't fun anymore because the cheat code removed the friction that gave the mechanics meaning.
This raises an important question, and it's the ultimate insight regarding the architecture of eternal life. The hardest part of engineering immortality isn't stopping the telomeres from degrading.
Right.
And it isn't building a closed-loop electrical grid or spaceships. The true architectural challenge is designing a psychological framework that prevents humanity from putting the controller down.
So what does this all mean? How do you architect meaning in a world without endings?
Well, you have to deliberately engineer artificial struggle. You have to design systems of friction.
What does that actually look like, though? Are we talking about, like, simulating poverty?
It could be economic, yeah. Or it could be biological. Perhaps the only way to survive forever is to mandate forgetting. Imagine an architectural system where every 200 years, citizens undergo a voluntary, targeted memory wipe. You erase your entire career, your relationships, your accumulated wealth. You get dropped into a new city with nothing.
Just so you can experience the friction of starting over.
Exactly.
Just so you can feel the dopamine hit of falling in love for the first time, all over again.
It sounds horrific to our mortal minds, I know. But in the context of eternity, It might be an absolute psychological necessity. To survive forever, you essentially have to continuously murder your past self.
That is
The
intense.
architecture of immortality might look remarkably like a cycle of artificial reincarnation.
That completely recontextualizes the listener's prompt. What if humans became immortal? The answer isn't that we live happily ever after.
Not at all.
The answer is that we become curators of our own amnesia, desperately trying to trick ourselves into thinking our actions matter. We would have to constantly turn the cheat codes off just to feel something.
It forces us to realize that immortality is not a destination. It is a hostile, terrifyingly complex environment.
Yeah.
A human mind is evolved to run on a treadmill of a finite length. If you make the treadmill infinite, the motor doesn't just keep humming, it burns out entirely.
Which really makes you appreciate the limits we actually have right now. The constraints of our biology, the ticking clock of our lifespan, they aren't just cruel biological jokes.
No, they are functional.
They are the scaffolding that gives our lives structure. Without the deadline of death, the concept of a wasted day doesn't exist. But neither does the concept of a triumph.
Every single choice we make today, who we love, what career we pursue, how we spend a random Saturday, has weight specifically because we cannot make every choice.
We have to prioritize.
And immortality destroys priority.
If you can do everything eventually, you don't have to do anything today.
Yeah.
That is the true danger of the limitless horizon. And it is just wild how all these massive, sprawling concepts, from cellular mutation to thermodynamic constraints, from wealth consolidation to the neurochemistry of motivation, were entirely encapsulated in a 9-word prompt.
It proves that the most profound inquiries rarely require complex framing. The simplest questions about human nature usually expose the most fragile parts of our reality.
Absolutely. It is the ultimate exercise in critical thinking for you listening right now. Taking a concept we universally view as a dream living forever and rigorously testing its structural integrity until we realize it's actually a nightmare.
Yeah.
It holds a mirror up to our finite existence and shows us that the very things we are trying to cure might be the things keeping us human.
The architecture of life requires the gravity of death to hold it together.
I think that is the perfect place to leave this discussion, but I do want to leave you, the listener, with one final, unaddressed concept to ponder on your own.
Oh, I love these.
It builds on everything we've discussed about the mechanics of boredom, the necessity of friction, and the video game cheat codes. Let's assume humanity actually does the impossible. We successfully engineer the perfect architecture of eternal life.
Okay, we solve it all.
We conquer cellular degradation, we build perfectly infinite cities, and we solve the psychological decay. We become true, flawless immortals.
Right.
If we reach that absolute pinnacle of human engineering, would our ultimate final invention simply be a beautifully designed artificial form of mortality? Just so we could finally feel the thrill of the game ending once again.